anywhere in the world. We're so pleased to be together again for another episode where we connect you to other cultures, for you to do a better business, understand about communication leadership, and prepare you for a global setting where you can succeed. My name is Mona with Monalu International, and I work with organizations and leaders who want to enhance their cultural intelligence, cultural awareness, call it CQ, so that they can increase their productivity, harmony, and teamwork. And today, or team performance, today we have a special guest all the way from the other side of the world, from a place, a tiny country, but with a lot of achievement, and that is Qatar. I will let him introduce himself. Welcome to the show. Should I call you Mr. Hutchinson? Skylar?
You can call me Hutch. Thank you.
Hutch, okay. Please go ahead and introduce yourself.
All right. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. It is late in the evening. As you can see, it's a little bit dark over here. So my name is Hutch. I was born in the United States. I graduated from University of Washington in Seattle with a degree in cultural anthropology and comparative history of ideas. After I graduated, I decided to move to Las Vegas and pursued a master's degree in education and worked in taught in a high school in Las Vegas for 3 years, and then accepted a job offer over here in Qatar. And I've been teaching, this is my 3rd year teaching here, and my family and I love it. We absolutely love Doha, and we live here with my wife and 2 children. So it's a pleasure to be with you, Mona, and I am pleased to talk about culture. I love discussing it, and I hope, personally, my opinion is that the more we understand each other, the more peaceful we can live. So.
Yes, I absolutely agree. Not only the more peaceful we can live is we can grow as people personally and professionally, and then we open up all kind of opportunities for ourselves to build a good foundation that will lead to better business practices and better business dealing. So I will ask you, the first question will be, how would you compare the life, obviously, it's coming, between Qatar and the United States? I mean, a lot of people will hear, okay, an American going to Qatar, I don't know about that, because you know how the media projects so many other countries. Tell us what is the difference?
Yeah, there are many differences. There are a lot of differences between living in the United States and living here in Qatar. Before I begin, I just want to bring a caveat that along with everything that I talk about, obviously I'm going to be talking about my own perspective. I'm going to be talking from my own experience. And as I discuss culture and, differences in norms and mores, there, certain things we see, behaviors we see in society, these are generalizations and there are no absolutes. So even if I observe something that's fairly common, that doesn't speak for everybody. But I think, reflecting on my own experience as a teacher, the number one thing is they value teachers much more here than they do in the United States. I definitely feel more valuable as an employee here. I am paid a living wage, which is really nice. I live comfortably, where in the US, I was not. And And that is a huge difference in lifestyle for me personally.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just, a short story here. When we first moved here, we'd been here for maybe 3 months or so.
Uh-huh.
And, um, and it was my son's birthday, and we had this big party, and
Uh-huh.
I was lifting things in and out of the trunk all day,
Uh-huh.
and I injured my back. I actually felt, a snap or a pop in my back, and it was really traumatic. And I went home. I couldn't bend over to get in the car, so I actually walked home, and I laid down on the bed, and I realized I couldn't move, and I was terrified. And so we called the ambulance, and they came, and they said, "Do you need to go to the emergency room?"
Uh-huh.
And I remember specifically being scared. How much does it cost? And they said, "What? How much does what cost?" I said, "The ambulance ride to the hospital." And they said, "What are you talking about? What do you mean?" And I said, "Does it cost anything?" They said, "No, no, no. If you need to go to the hospital, we will take you to the hospital."
Oh, wow.
And I remember, that was kind of our first real interaction with the healthcare system here. And so anyway, I did not end up needing to go by ambulance, but I went into the hospital the next day,
Uh-huh.
and I was in such pain. They admitted me for, I think, 4 or 5 days.
Uh-huh.
And during that 4 or 5 days, my wife paid more for parking at the hospital than my hospital stay cost. And I received great care and felt, really taken care of. And that was a huge shift in experience in the healthcare system, like having that freedom, to live and not be in fear of what a potential health crisis could bring upon me. So that was a big difference. Um, Obviously, some of the more visible things are, the difference as far as differences is the dress.
Uh-huh.
Um, uh, Most people, I would say that, most people are dressed conservatively here, modestly.
Uh-huh.
Um, there are a bunch of, expats, or a bunch of foreigners living in Qatar.
Yes.
And so a lot of them bring with them their traditional dress, which is really cool to
Uh-huh.
see, because it's not just kind of this homogenous way of, dressing it. Like everybody kind of dresses in their own tradition. But the Qatari nationals, they dress, the men dress with long white, their
Robe. Yeah.
so
Uh-huh.
yeah, but it's long white robe, and the women in black, usually
Uh-huh.
black robes, and then it's called nabaya, and they usually have a covering over their hair. And some women have their faces completely covered, and that that was a kind of a big difference for me in a couple of ways, and I'd like to kind of explore that a little bit. Um,
Please. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so as a man, the separation of men and women and the lack of public affection, you know,
Uh-huh.
I'm very used to. I'm certainly affectionate toward my wife, and so we would, in public, we would greet each other and kiss each other and
Uh-huh.
hug each, hold hands with each other, and so on. And we quickly learned that that's not necessarily, um, it's it's not prohibited, I would say, but it's definitely not the norm.
Yes.
And so wanting to be respectful, we limit ourselves to just holding hands, which is fine, but we don't kiss each other in public anymore.
Uh-huh.
So having that idea, like for example, at the supermarket, if I'm walking down an aisle and there's a, Qatari woman face covered, like I don't have that eye contact, or that kind of reading of facial expressions and I found myself being intimidated in those situations.
Oh,
And
wow.
it kind of permeated into my work as well as a teacher. And I didn't
Uh-huh.
realize how much I relied on that physical interaction with somebody to
Uh-huh.
establish not only a relationship, but to establish like their identity in my mind.
Yes.
And, and so like, I would shake hands with colleagues, put hands on shoulders, speak to them. And without this, even my American colleagues or my colleagues from, other Western countries, there wasn't, especially with women, there wasn't that physical connection or handshake even. And I
Uh-huh.
didn't realize how much that kind of, you know, how significant it was to me.
Oh,
And so I had to kind of relearn how to build relationships with people without that physical connection. And, and in a way, it prepared me for COVID-19,
I was just
and
going to say
now,
that.
yeah, nobody's touching anybody anymore. And, often the face
Exactly.
is covered. Well,
Cover up.
yeah. So I find it really interesting. And I must say, going back to the supermarket experience, now after 6 months or a year or whatever, I realized that, there's nothing to be intimidated about. I just treat them like a person, and they treat me like a person, and it's not a big deal. But I remember in the beginning, I was fairly intimidated by it.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of comparison between the two.
Yes. Before we go to the next point, uh, as you mentioned right now, women being covered from head to toe, some of them, you kind of you don't know who you're dealing with. And I understand your point of view, and I do understand the feeling that you're sharing with us. But when we have women like this here, or we see them here on the street in America, especially from Saudi Arabia or other parts of the Arabian Peninsula, wearing that, a lot of people think that these women are mistreated or oppressed or suppressed. And knowing the culture, which I understand very well, knowing the culture, that is not the case. That is not a symbol of oppression or suppression or victimizations of women. I mean, how? What was your point of view um, here in the US when you were here, seeing women covered up, and when you went out there and worked with them and interact with them on daily basis? What has changed in your opinion?
Well, I think familiarity, most of all. When I lived in the United States, I didn't see that as often. And living here, I see it more often. And so that familiarity is I would say,
Mhm.
changed my opinion in that it's, like I said, it's not intimidating anymore. It's not as a really big misconception, I think. And I teach young women, and I teach young men. I teach
Uh-huh.
high school,
Uh-huh.
and and I think that you know uh, oppression of women definitely happens in all parts of the world.
Yes.
Uh, you know, but I would say that it's a misconception about the women here. Um, you look at like the education rates, and I don't have these statistics
Uh-huh.
available to me,
Uh-huh.
but you look at the education rates, you look at the initiatives put forward by the government here to promote and help and aid female entrepreneurs. Like it's really staggering. I think I can't remember the statistics, but they're really high numbers of women who are in business, women who own businesses, that kind of thing. And it's, yeah, I think it's a common misconception, and it's unfortunate. One thing, I was speaking to my wife earlier about that, and she said, no, it's interesting because of certain things within the culture that exist, and that is this idea of the support network. In the West, in the United States, there's not really a very good support network. And so if a woman, this is from my wife's perspective, she says, if a woman wants to have a career and raise a family, there's a lot on her shoulders, and it isn't, that support really isn't there. Here women have a support network. So they have cousins, they have relatives, and they're all helping each other. Not only that, but built into the culture is definitely, having a housekeeper and a nanny. And, that is something that was a difference in moving here as well. And so women can tend to their children in the most important ways, and then take care of their business, or take care of, whatever business side of it that they have. And, they're supported. They feel like, they're supported in those endeavors, where, I look at, an American woman might not have that same kind of support. So it's all falling on her to do all of those things, and it's overwhelming. So yeah, it's an unfortunate misconception, but I definitely feel like that's exactly what it is, a misconception.
So to the people who are listening to us right now, what would you tell them about judging people based on the external or exterior physical appearance? What would you tell them?
Well, I mean,
especially when dealing with cultures.
Yeah, as a cultural anthropologist, or having studied cultural anthropology anyway, we all do it. It's kind of built into us, and have that tribal mentality of, this person is not familiar to me, and so it goes way back. And it's kind of like built into our to our behavior, and it's a protection mechanism. However, that it is ridiculous in a lot of ways, and to see somebody and judge them on their appearance, or the way they dress, or the color of their skin, or whether their hair is a certain length or whatever. It really is ridiculous. Like I said in the beginning, there are no absolutes. So even if you have certain experiences with certain types of people, or people who you would group into a certain group, it doesn't speak for the whole group. And in reality, it only speaks for those experiences that you've had with those specific people. So, putting anybody in a box is ridiculous, but putting anybody in a box because of the way they look is just beyond ridiculous.
Yeah, there is a lot of, and as you may very well know, there is a lot of negative media about Muslims here in the West. And if people don't take time to really understand what is it about, they can fall victim to exactly what you're saying. Misconception, misrepresentation, misjudgment, all of the above. And a lot of time, we block ourselves. We're not allowing ourselves to go beyond that wall that we built between us and the other person that looks different. And I tell people, bring down that wall. Just try to try to remove it, and find a way to understand more about the other person. And the negative media that has been here for years about Muslims is so is so just like you said, so ridiculous, and sometimes it can be dangerous if people are not so much open to learning and understanding. I just want to point that out. And maybe when you were here, you perhaps had the same image until you went out there and lived with people and see how they do their business, how they conduct themselves, how they live their lives, everyday lives. It's just like us. They have the same hopes, the same fears, the same um, aspiration as anyone else. They want to live, live in peace and harmony. Would you say that? Would you
Yeah,
agree?
yeah, I would agree. I think that the most important thing that we can do is to listen to each other, and and get to know each other. And this isn't my first time living abroad,
Yeah.
but both times that I have lived abroad, I have been judged myself and had
Yes.
people snap judgments about me, especially regarding the leadership of my country. And so, and I feel slighted because just because the leadership of my country has a certain attitude or has said a certain statement that does not reflect who I am and that does not
Yes.
reflect necessarily how I feel about the world around me. And so, it, yeah, and the same goes the other way around. Um, and if we just get to know each other, we know that we don't we don't
Yeah.
embody what our political leaders say, or religious leaders necessarily. It's we all have our own individual ideas and attitudes and perspectives on things.
Yeah. What other countries have you lived at?
I lived in Bulgaria before.
Oh, wow. For how many years?
I lived there for about 2 years,
Oh,
and
must
I've
have
been
been
back many.
quite. Go ahead.
I said I've been back many times. I love Bulgaria.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Very nice. So let me ask you this. Why exactly Qatar just came up, say, okay, I have a job opportunity, or you wanted to explore that region of the world? Because from the United States to Bulgaria to Qatar is quite a mix of differences there. What just made you say, okay, yes, okay, let's pack and go to Qatar?
Yeah, that's a great question. Uh, so after I got my master's degree, it actually kind of goes back to being valued as a teacher. So when
Uh-huh.
I was first hired as a teacher in Clark County School District, which is in Las Vegas, I
Uh-huh.
was told, once you finish your master's degree, we will give you this raise. And I thought,
Uh-huh.
okay, that sounds like a great deal. So about 4 or 5 months before I completed my degree, they renegotiated,
Uh-huh.
the district, and that raise incentive was done away with.
Uh-huh.
So I felt, and I actually took a pay cut. So I went from being paid a certain amount, and then after I got my master's degree, I was actually cut my salary.
Wow.
So I I felt like I needed to get out of there, and that wasn't a good place for me to be and raise my family, my young family. And my wife and I consulted with each other, and we felt like we wanted to teach internationally and see if we could find something out of the country. Uh,
Uh-huh.
and uh, and so we applied to many different places, and we didn't even apply to this place. It just showed up from my online profile, and uh,
Oh,
the principal of the school just offered, said, I would love to interview you. I see your credentials, and you look like you would be a good fit for our situation. And so, I the interview went really well.
uh-huh.
We connected, and so then we didn't know anything about Qatar. We had heard of it, but we really didn't know much of anything at all. And it's kind of funny because we were on the strip, the Las Vegas Strip, the week before, and this group of school children, probably 10 or 11 years old, were all walking down the strip together, and they all had Qatar Airways,
Uh-huh.
jerseys on.
Uh-huh.
And I'd said to my wife, wouldn't it be funny if we went to Qatar? And she said, no, it's too hot. Don't joke about stuff like that. And then a week later, we got, and I took a day off of work so that my wife and I could just research Qatar. And when we actually started doing research and not relying on our preconceived stereotypes or, just really vague understandings, lumping this country in with a bunch of other countries, when we actually started to look
Uh-huh.
deeply and research the country, we felt like, wow, this is a pretty impressive place.
Yeah.
And not only that, but it seems like a great place to raise a family. And so, we made our decision, and it's one of the best decisions we've made. We love it here, and it really is a safe place to be. I mean, that's going from Las Vegas, which was not a safe place,
Yes.
especially in the area we lived. I remember going to the park, and there was an empty syringe on the ground. My son was playing. It's just not
Yeah.
not a very safe situation to be in. And then moving here, and nobody locks their doors, and it's just, yeah, it's a totally different experience and
So,
lifestyle.
so having lived there for 3 years so far, has that amended or modified your behavior, your personality?
Yeah, it has. I must say, I feel that I'm more grateful
Uh-huh.
now, and that may be with lifestyle. I don't feel as anxious or stressed, and that can be attributed to where I work and who I
Yes.
work with.
Uh-huh.
I absolutely I absolutely love my students, which are 99% Qatari. I work in a school where the student population is 99% Qatari, and
Uh-huh.
I love working with them. I mean, they're a joy. They're very, very interesting and really really great kids. I call them kids. They're nearly adults, but I work with seniors in high school, but they're amazing people, and it has changed my personality in, I think, the largest way. And this is another difference,
Uh-huh.
in style, and that's it. It's a how do I put this? I wouldn't necessarily say it's a more laid back
Uh-huh.
lifestyle. Uh, Maybe it's a more enjoy the moment kind of lifestyle. Uh,
Yes.
I found myself living in the U.S. like, it's always results driven, be productive. How can I be more effective? All that kind of thing. And now I find myself, you know, enjoying life more, taking moments, and really understanding and trying to see the pleasure in things, and reading more, and
Yeah.
you know talking with friends more, and uh,
Having
yeah,
that
just
social life, just having
yeah,
that social life basically, and working. There's a difference between working to live and living to work.
mm,
So a lot of people in so many countries, industrial countries, they live to work instead of working to live, and they don't get to enjoy life as much. There is no social life, and if there is that social life, it's not very deep. It's not. Uh, I wouldn't say it can. Sometimes it's not as genuine as it should be. Uh,
Mm.
in If we assess it from the human side perspective, that's what, I can be wrong, but that's what I feel. When you don't have much time, you're just working, producing, um, get things done. Every day you're up running from one place to another or going to your job. And by the time you're done, you're so exhausted and you don't have time to even have a conversation with your family members or your loved one. You're just tired. You just want to go to bed or you just want to relax and do something. You don't get that time that is necessary for our growth as people.
Yeah, and I would say that is something that is really valued here, and that idea of community, that idea of socialization, um, and really, you know, getting together with people or just having downtime to talk and to express ideas and, you know, just be uh, with each other. And I think that is, you know, probably the biggest change to my personality is just the
Yeah,
idea of just, you know, just be.
yeah, yeah. I hear you and I understand exactly what you're saying. Well, now the one thing that I had in mind, you have talked about several things so far and you expressed how much you love it. Is there anything that inspired you? You found in Qatar that you haven't found in the US or you did not find in the US and Bulgaria, something that inspired you as as a person?
Um, I will say that the thing, uh, I think it is like that. You know, there definitely is a peacefulness that inspires me here,
Yeah.
and I think that could probably be largely attributed to Islam. But you know, I'm a Christian living in an Islamic nation,
Uh-huh.
and I feel like everywhere I go, every single place I go here, when I walk through the door, when I see somebody, they say, "Peace be upon you."
Yeah.
And whether I'm a stranger, whether I'm their, you know, good friend, or I've been teaching them for 3 years, it doesn't matter, you know. And that really is, in fact, I have a necklace that
Uh-huh.
says in Arabic, you know, "Peace be upon you."
Oh, wow.
And my wife had it made for me, and it is because that is a lifestyle, and I love that it not only is what you say, and you know, for many people it is just what you say, but it really is, it kind of permeates through the language and into the lifestyle and attitude. And I really do love that, and I find that inspirational. um, I think my first year here, uh, it was the end of
Yeah.
Ramadan, so a month a month of
Asking.
fasting. And one of my friends took me to a mosque and said, you know, you gotta go and see, like, the last day, and they finish reading the Quran.
Uh-huh.
and and I mean, you know, we were at the back of the mosque,
Uh-huh.
and it was a huge mosque, and just a sea of bodies, you know, and just like all standing in a row and all praying at the same time. And, you know, just there was this humility that was incredibly inspiring to me, to see that much solidarity among a people. And, you know, you have all walks of life, rich, poor, you know, Qatari, Indian, Jordanian, Lebanese, doesn't matter. And they're all there and they're all participating. And it was really humbling. And I'm super grateful for that experience, because, you know, it really changed my perception of, you know, of not only of Islam, but of the people and how they interact with each other. So yeah, it was
Yeah.
really great.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. And since we are talking about peace be upon you, here in the West, when we hear, for example, Allahu Akbar, people think that's a term that is used by jihadis and it means something that, and I tell people, listen, this phrase is used on pretty much every dialogue in there. God is great. God is great. They can hear and use of someone being promoted, and they will say, God is great. They will hear and use of someone that just passed away. They would say, God is great. So that phrase of Allahu Akbar is used on daily conversational situations that the West has to understand that it doesn't have a negative connotation to it. In fact, it is so positive and so sad that some groups of interest have used it to do harms to others. So, do you hear that a lot in conversational?
Yeah, yeah. I would equate it as like hallelujah, in
Hallelujah. Uh-huh.
people just say hallelujah, like I it's a fairly common thing to hear, and I feel like it's, pretty much the same thing. So, it's just a common phrase.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't speak Arabic and I don't know too much about the language, but I do know that, Allah is built into the language quite a bit. So
Quite a bit.
it's,
Yeah.
laced through a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you'll make an appointment, you tell them, inshallah.
Yes.
Everything that you do,
Right.
okay, inshallah, inshallah. Just like in Spanish, it's ojalá, which is coming actually from inshallah. Is the same thing. Oh, when you make plans, you say ojalá, but equivalent to Arabic is inshallah, which are the same exact meaning. So let's yeah.
I find that is one cultural difference, definitely, and I know that Western expats kind of joke about that, the inshallah lifestyle, and and it really actually kind of highlights the difference between the two, like
Uh-huh.
so for example, let's meet at 6 o'clock, and then it's 6 o'clock, we'll meet there, uh, and then it's, well, inshallah, we'll meet at 6 o'clock. And so there's a little more room for interpretation there. And,
Yes.
and you can either fight against that and be frustrated and annoyed, or
Uh-huh.
you can humble yourself and accept, like, this is, I am in their culture. I am a guest in their country,
Uh-huh.
and try to embrace, their lifestyle and their perspective of the world. And so that then becomes, actually more of a peaceful and relaxing kind of, way to go about things. And I certainly have done that myself. I mean, I was just at the post office, and of course, I was there to pick up a package,
Uh-huh.
family sending over for the holidays.
Uh-huh.
And the guy at the counter was taking a very long time, and I
Okay.
found myself starting to get frustrated. And then I thought, why am I getting frustrated? I can just come back here if it closes before I get to the counter. Like, it's not a big deal. And I think there's so much, there's so much efficiency built into the American, ID, the American kind of, understanding, and it can be a bit demanding,
Uh-huh.
maybe a little bit of entitlement. Like, I'm here, I'm paying, I want this done, like, I want this product, that kind of thing. And that definitely, that bottom line is above all,
Uh-huh.
is not the way it is here. There are other things, many other things that are bigger priorities than the bottom line. And as the, from my personal opinion, that falls more in line with my personal beliefs, which is great to live in a place where that kind of thing is more embraced.
So give me an example of their other priorities than right now. Just an example.
Well, for example, like, so the bottom line. So, like, for example, a store wants to, a store in the United States, they want to maximize profit, right? And so maximizing profit is like the number one priority. Where here, I don't feel like that is the case. There are more important things. And I would say the most important thing is relationship building. And that getting together and building relationships with other people. In fact, I spoke to a friend of mine who tried to start a business here and was not successful. And so, I asked him what, and he said, I just didn't understand the culture.
Yes.
And I said, well, what is the cult? What did you not understand? And his response was that, it's not about, meeting together and finding a solution to the issue. That is certainly a priority, but it's not the number one priority. Before that is building trust, building a relationship, getting to know you, and taking that time to establish a rapport. We can get to the other stuff later, how we make money and how we do business and how we integrate these systems and so on. We can do that later. But the number one thing is, who are you? And where are you coming from? And let's build a relationship. And I can definitely see that as a teacher, in the United States, when I was teaching, I would take, maybe 2 or 3, maybe a week to build relationships with my students at the beginning of the school year. And then it would be all about reaching standards, breaking down goals. How do we get them to be as productive as possible? And here, I quickly learned that is not the way it goes. And so, I would argue that, my entire first year of teaching was, of course, we were working and, they were being productive, but that was not the focus. The focus was more, how do I build a relationship with these students? And I've actually had the unique opportunity to teach the same students for 3 years in a row. And, and part of that is because I advocated to do so, because they're a great group of kids and I really wanted to teach them again. But
That's awesome.
I find that now that I have 2 years of, relationship building with them, I can ask a lot more of them, and they're more willing to, to produce, those things. And that relationship is really solid, which I'm really grateful for. But that is definitely more of a priority. And I see that permeate not only, in my classroom, but in society as a whole, for sure.
So when you mentioned, who are you? Let's know who you are. I feel what you meant is not so much, okay, I'm a doctor, so I'm engineer, so that's not that. Leave that aside, and let's get to know who you are as a person. I'm not interested in your credentials at this moment. I'm not so much worried about what you have to bring to the table, as much as I am concerned about the fact that you are a good human being, that obviously deserving of my relationship.
Yes.
Right? Okay. That's so cool. So this is going to take us to what should American know if they want to do business with the Qataris? What, how do they do business with them? How do they communicate with them?
Yeah. So, again, my perspective is, I'm not in the business world, but
Uh-huh.
I am a teacher and I do work with Qatari students and their
Yeah.
parents. And then, I have relationships outside of that. But I would say number one, kind of jokingly, like, get together, drink some karak, which is kind of the national drink. It's like a very sweet milk tea.
What is it
Um,
called? Karak?
Karak, yeah, it's
Uh-huh.
Karak. Get together,
Okay.
drink some karak, and just talk, you know, and 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 that is definitely more important than and again, no absolutes. So
Uh-huh.
there are definitely people who've either been raised in the West or educated in the West, and they may have a different way
Uh-huh.
of doing business. But as a
Mhm.
general rule, that prioritizes over mostly everything else, and that building of trust. And it's interesting because once that trust is built, once that relationship is really solid, I mean, it's solid, and they're very warm and welcoming. They are very warm and welcoming at the beginning, but once that trust is built, I mean, it's incredible.
Okay.
How warm and understanding and welcoming and accommodating they are. I would also say that manners are very important.
Okay.
Um, so, like being polite, speaking very respectfully uh, is very important. And, I mean, a lot of my students' parents address me as Mr. Hutch, which is kind of strange to me, as an American, but but it's but I understand that it's important to them, and
Yeah.
so there is that really polite kind of way of speaking, very respectful. We don't in English we don't necessarily have the formal and
Yes.
informal you, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's there. So um, yeah, and it's a big deal. I mean, it's just the simple things. Like I have one student who will never allow me to walk in a door behind him. Like he will make a point for me to go before him. And
Uh-huh.
I've been out on field trips, for example, and
Uh-huh.
there's students who will not allow me to pay for my lunch. Just
Oh,
that
wow.
is completely acceptable. And so there is that, it's that formal kind of respect that exists. So I would say those two things would be my big pieces of advice.
There is warmth, there is generosity, there is respect, and I am obviously aware that the culture goes by hierarchy, and you have to know who you're addressing to make sure you use the right language that is corresponding to the position of that person you're dealing with. Is that right?
Yes, that's absolutely right. In fact, that's a really good point. Because regardless of the group, whatever the group makeup is, there is definitely a hierarchy within that group, even if it's just, kind of like a on the fly, spur of the moment group.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
There will probably be a hierarchy there. And so, if you're sitting in a meeting with
Uh-huh.
the CEO and the CFO, you know, I would think, well, the person in charge is the CEO,
Uh-huh.
but that might not necessarily be the case. It might be this CFO or the managing director or whoever they're actually the one making the decisions, so it's there is a bit of that, for sure. Absolutely. And I
Okay.
see that,
Yeah.
I mean, I see that, but I see that in my classroom as well. So, and there are families, and the way the families interact, because the families are big, these are really big families. And so, like, my last name is Hutchison. I don't really know that many Hutchisons,
Uh-huh.
but here, if your last name is, Al Thani or Al Naimi, it's a big family with a lot of cousins and a lot of relatives, and they're all kind of, supportive of each other.
Yeah, I know that in Qatar, just like in Dubai, when I went to the Emirates, um, they're very quick becoming a minority in their own country. I mean, there is a small, when I was in the Emirates, when I was in Dubai, I when I saw Emirati wearing the white robe and all that, and I wanted to go and take a picture of him or take a picture with him because it was very unusual for me, and I didn't see many of them. I saw very, very few. The largest majority are foreigners, and I'm assuming it's the same thing in Qatar. Is that right?
It is. It is. I think it's, I read recently, it was like 88%, or, some crazy 85, 90% of the population here are foreigners, are expats. And,
Wow.
and that's another thing is, people mistake these people for, immigrants, and they're not immigrants because they don't gain citizenship. These people are expats. They maintain their citizenship in their home country, and then they come here to work. Like myself, and citizenship is not granted, from what I understand,
Yeah.
very often. It's fairly rare, and and I think the reason for that, and I really commend Qatar for this. Like, as somebody who loves culture, they they are progressive, and they are, wanting to build. I mean, the city of Doha is just, growing like crazy, and they're preparing for the World Cup, and all that kind of thing. But despite all of this growth, all of this outside influence, they are really, loyal to their roots. And there is definitely um, a conscious effort being
Uh-huh.
made to hold on to their culture and to their roots. And I really love to see it. You can see it in the architecture, you can see it in, in the attitudes, you can see it, it's everywhere. And I love that, because they have a pride in that.
Pride.
And yeah, and that is something, like, I remember, when people would come to visit me in the United States from other countries, one of the things that they would notice is, man, you guys have a lot of American flags, like, everywhere,
Uh-huh.
like,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
flags everywhere. And that was, strange to them. And here, is one of the only other countries I've been to where that's the case. The Qatari flag is everywhere. People are
Everywhere.
proud. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
But
it's cool.
what I know, traveling to other places, and some of them in that region, is they are proud, but uh, they're not intimidating. In other words, they're proud to preserve their heritage, but they're welcoming of other cultures, and they're welcoming of other nationalities, and they make them feel at home. Is that a good assessment?
That is a good assessment.
Okay.
I believe, just like anywhere else, I mean, there is going to be, prejudice and racism and discrimination, of course.
Yeah.
But um, but I would say that, that is a correct assessment. That there definitely is this idea, or this attitude rather, of, these people are coming to our country to help us and to help us build this country. And so, they recognize that they're vastly outnumbered, if you will. And there is
Yes.
sort of a respect there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, absolutely. As an American coming here, I definitely feel at home. I know that the compound where I live, when it was built, one of the things that they wanted to be sure of was that there was a lot of greenery. So they planted a lot of trees and bushes and things, because they wanted the Western expats to feel more at home.
Yeah,
And
at
so
home.
I know that there is that consideration.
That's very nice. How did you guys do with coronavirus?
Oh my gosh, I will say that I feel like I'm in the safest place in the world. I don't, I don't know because I've been here, of course, but I can only see what's on the news and then, talking to my friends and family in the United States. But here it was, very, very stringent protocols. Very early on, things were shut down. It was, they basically, for all intents and purposes, followed the experts' advice to the letter. And schools shut down. It was one day everything was open, the next day we're shutting down. And so it was just like that. And we, of course, as teachers had to scramble and figure things out. But yeah, they protocols were followed, things were locked down, only necessary things were happening, like grocery shopping. They actually established a lot of delivery systems. So, a lot of things were being able to be delivered, groceries included as one of the main things. And then, one of the things that I noticed is when they had quarantine, like mandatory quarantine, set up for people who were either positive or coming, from out of the country or whatever, if they violated that, not only were they fined, but they actually published their names.
Oh, wow.
And
Wow.
and so, it was really strict, and they wanted to make sure that people were, trying to be safe. And there was, the propaganda was definitely, like driving down the street. I remember there was a an advertisement or whatever of an old person, an elderly person, said, in Arabic and then in English at the bottom, said, "Stay home for me," or "Stay home for my sake." Like things like that, where it was really being pushed as, and as an American, to isolate it, it certainly is a sacrifice, but it's not really that much of a sacrifice. But for these people, where community lifestyle, getting together in large groups, going to mosque and praying, like what a huge sacrifice. And then Ramadan happened right after that.
Yes.
And so instead of, and no, I mean, there are some really big gatherings and celebrations during Ramadan, and they were not doing that. I mean, they were at least being asked not to do that. And so, like, it was, I mean, just I think of how much there was a sacrifice and an infringement on their cultural lifestyle, and it was far more than it was on me. And yeah,
the
I
same
just think
here.
it was amazing.
Yeah, the same here, the same thing. A lot of sacrifices were made, and hopefully we'll get through this phase very quick. So before last, this is a question as far as leadership. I know I ask this question a lot because I wanted to know what does leadership mean to the Qatari society? What is a good leader? How do they lead? What's their style? Do you have any idea? Can you tell us a little bit about that? whether it is in your school, for example, as far as the leadership team there, is it empathetic? Is it aggressive? Is it more of other Asian style leadership that, okay, I say so and you have to listen because I am the authority, and as the authority, I will take care of your needs, type of style?
That is probably a little bit of a tougher question for me to
Yeah,
answer,
yeah,
but
okay.
I may say that if I were to respond, I would say that the leadership style would be quiet dignity. Um, I definitely don't see like the posturing of being aggressive or ultra you know yeah, aggressive or anything like that. I don't see that that loud kind of flamboyant
Uh-huh.
leadership style. It's definitely more like a quiet, dignified kind of style where it's more reserved, and the presence kind of speaks for itself.
I see.
Yeah, I would definitely say that. And then, of course, I will say that the family name, and that plays a large part into it as
A
well.
large part. Interesting. So
Yeah.
the last question is, let's say I want to do business with Qatar. Who do I contact? For American businesses, for Americans that would like to do business with the Qatari people in Qatar, what would be the resources available to us as Americans to establish relationship with the Qatari business people, or people in general?
Hmm.
Is it Chamber of Commerce? Is it the embassy? What's how do we approach? Let's say I have a business and I want to get people from Qatar to invest either here in the U.S. market or vice versa. Who do I contact?
That's a good question. I really don't know. I really
Huh.
don't know.
Well, probably I would try with the Chamber of Commerce. Is there an American Chamber of Commerce there?
Yeah, there's an American embassy here. Yeah,
No, the Chamber of Commerce.
I don't know.
You don't know. Okay, okay. Well, I'm sure there is. So basically, you give us an idea of what Qatar is all about, the culture, how should we approach them, or what is the etiquette of doing business, and also the daily etiquette that you need to use with the Qatari. And time is fluid. Let it be, inshallah, and build the relationship first. Get to know the person, get to know who they are as people before you discuss any type of business or any type of venture. Would you say that visiting Qatar will be a good idea for Americans?
Absolutely, I would. And I've had family come over here to visit us, and I think that they definitely had one picture in their mind,
Yeah,
and came here. They were very surprised that it wasn't like that at all. And I they just kind of at the end of their stay, they said, "Wow, I really see why you love it here. It all makes sense." And I would absolutely encourage Americans to come over here to visit, to to see the remarkable things that are here to enjoy. But it's just, the biggest appeal is the people. Like in
yeah,
most places,
uh-huh,
you know, Qatari people are incredibly generous. And like I say, like as a teacher, I only can speak from my perspective and my experience, but
yeah,
my students, I love working with my students, and they're
yeah.
amazing.
Okay.
And I just love getting to know them and working with them. And yeah, it's an opportunity that I hope that a lot of Americans could experience.
And how many hours flight? Is it around 16 hours?
Too many, I think.
Too many?
It's by the time. I mean, I flew from Las Vegas, and by the time everything was said and done, I think it was like 25 hours. So
Oh
it's a,
my!
with layovers and everything. Yeah, it's a stretch. If you can get a direct
Oh
flight,
my!
that's
I got to think
that's
about
amazing.
that.
Yeah, it's a bit of a journey for sure. And if you're traveling with small children, good luck.
Oh my! And obviously Doha is the capital, right? That's the biggest city, and there's pocket of small other towns. Obviously, is the growth
Sure.
the same at the same rate at other places? Um, Beside Doha, is there other places worth visiting?
No, I think it's something like 92% of the population live in Doha.
Oh wow,
There
wow.
are cities, but they are small. They are small in comparison. So, and there's about 2.5 million people here. So, it's a big city, but yeah, there are pockets and there are towns, but not many. And most of the people live in Doha. But I mean, it's a cool place because virtually every direction you drive, there's a beach. you know?
Wow. Yes,
So
I did see that on pictures and it looked really, really cool.
yeah, it's beautiful.
And and I have some connections on LinkedIn where I saw yesterday that they were so happy because they will host the games at 2030 games, I believe, right? It
Yeah,
was a celebration,
yeah, the Asian Games.
the
Yeah,
Asian
they'll be
games.
hosting those in 2030. Yes.
Very nice. Well, maybe I should plan to visit during the World Cup in 2022, after all this thing of COVID is settled and done.
Yeah, absolutely. Look me up. I'll probably still be here, and I would love to show you around.
Very good. A last statement, Hutch, before we say goodbye. You've been wonderful. You've shared so much information that people would appreciate. So tell us your last statement before we say goodbye. A
Okay,
closing statement, if you will.
statement. You know, uh, I do want to go back to the salam alaikum kind of mentality, and I really do believe that the more we understand each other, the more peaceful our world will be. Whether that's in business or education or any kind of field, listen to people and get to know them, not just what you think they are, but really get to know them as an individual, and you will find that there is so much more commonality than you think, and so much more similarity. And once you are able to build those bridges and make those connections, the differences don't seem intimidating anymore. They don't become scary. Those differences are actually enriching, and they are cause for celebration. And that diversity is what life is all about, and that's how we learn and grow as people, is learning from each other. And if I had to say one thing, that would be it.
That's a beautiful, beautiful ending to our session. I thank you so much for your generosity, for accepting to be here and share your information with us. And hopefully, when I go to Qatar, I will say, Hutch, I am visiting. Let's have some coffee somewhere
Absolutely.
and give
Absolutely.
me a tour of Doha. Thank you so much, and God bless, and stay safe. Although I know you are safe there, but I would say stay safe and stay happy and relax and enjoy life. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Have a great evening. I know you. It's time for bed right now. right?
It is, yeah.
Okay. Have
Thank
a
you,
great
Mona.
time.
It was a
Thank
pleasure.
you. Same
Thank you.
here.
All right.
Bye-bye.